Hello and welcome, Star People. This is APM, your intrepid star guide and cosmic detective, and this is another episode of the Outlaw Astrology Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the final court card exploration, the Kings. And so the Kings are the cardinal, active expression of each suit and explores external authority, experience, commanding leadership, and an authoritative power in wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. And housekeeping, this is the fourth of the four court card episodes, the king representing the fire element and the energy of established authority, external command, and mastery made manifest. In addition to that, you can find the Outlaw Astrology on Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Those links are in the show notes. The Outlaw Astrology also has a paid and free newsletter called The Outlaw Astrology's The Daily Stargazer newsletter and podcast. You can find those links and information on that in the show notes. And if you'd be so kind, please like, share, and subscribe this podcast with other astro-curious people so that others can find the podcast more easily and also gain from the knowledge shared here. And with that, thank you very much, and now onward. Alright, welcome back, stargazers, and let's step into this first one. We're going to understand the Kings, and this is the fire of the suit. And so the Kings represent the fire element expressing through the suit. It is active energy, it is external energy, it is the ruler or commander archetype. Once again, this is not gendered information. None of the court cards are meant to be gendered, regardless of how many memes you might see on the internet saying that this is so. Some people choose to gender their court cards and gender their cards. I am not one of them, and if you're here, you're probably not interested in doing that either. And so, you can be a king and identify as a female, as a woman, as a they, them, as a zizir, etc. It does not matter. That is a choice that only you can make. That's not a choice anyone can make, no matter how many people they have subscribing to them on Instagram, no matter how many books they've written on the topic or how many memes they've shared. You are free to choose. If you see yourself as a king, then you are a king, and that's all that matters, okay? So, moving on, we're going to talk about the Kings, and they embody mature power, the mature use of power. I don't know if I'd say commanding, but yeah, commanding presence, the ability to lead, to direct, the wisdom that comes from external achievement and proven authority. So the Kings are what is called master with quotes of external command. And that's fully embodying their suit's essence through active leadership, established authority, and the power to direct and shape the external world. And so let's make a note about the Kings. This is mature energy. It is learning. So this is lived experiences doing the talking here. The Kings have taken action, and they've been very discerning. They can now be discerning. Before, they probably took all the action all over the place, but the Kings now take strategic action. They take discerning action because they know what's going to work, what most likely is going to work, and what isn't. And they do so more quickly and what appears to be effortlessly because of years of practice or effort. So now they can make those decisions with greater ease, or at least appearing to be ease. Okay? And so we're looking at also periods of requiring decisive leadership and command from a place of established power, meaning this person has proven themselves to be a good leader, and they are someone you can look towards and can trust their decision-making and their strategies. Now, we're going to talk about the four kings, and it's fire of fire. For the King of Wands is fire of fire. The King of Cups is fire of water. The King of Swords is fire of air. And the King of Pentacles is fire of earth. Once again, this is from the Golden Dawn, which is a group of ceremonial magicians who lived in the late 19th, early 20th century, and Aleister Crowley was one of the members, as well as W.B. Yeats and Pamela Coleman, who also was the creator, as in a draw. She drew the Rider-Waite Smith and later Lady Frida Harris, who was the artist of the tote deck, otherwise Thoth, pronounced tote, the tote deck, which she created with Aleister Crowley. So this is where all of this comes from. Consider also there are different lineages on this information. And a caveat, I am not a ceremonial magician, and so I'm sharing this as a matter of information so that when you see those memes, those posts talking about how you can mix astrology with your tarot, you have a better understanding of what's going on there and can decide if you want to step in that way or if you want to make some changes. And so we're going to start with the King of Wands, Fire of Fire, and we're talking about visionary leadership, bold authority, inspiring people to follow you through creative will. This is the sovereign energy that leads to charisma, courage, and unstoppable forward momentum. Next is the King of Cups, that's fire of water. This is emotional authority. This is compassionate leadership. This is commanding presence, and it's rooted in emotional intelligence. This is the sovereign who leads through empathy while maintaining clear direction. The King of Swords is fire of air. That's intellectual authority, strategic command, decisive judgment. The sovereign who leads with clarity of thought, ethical standards, and the courage to make difficult decisions. So, and then we got the King of Pentacles, fire of earth. That's material mastery, established wealth, practical authority, the sovereign who commands through proven success, resource management, and the ability to build lasting structures. So when we're looking at the kings, I think of some of them from Greek mythology. And so when I look at the King of Swords, starting there, fire of air, I always think of Odysseus, who was the main character in the Odyssey. He was the captain of the ship, the Odyssey, and the Odyssey was also, the ship was on a 10-year journey trying to get back from the Trojan War. And because Odysseus and his sailors and his team were on the right side of the war, they won it, but they displeased some of the gods who had supported the Trojans, meaning Aphrodite and Poseidon had supported the Trojans in their attempts to resist the Greek invasion. And he is ideal for this because he made strategic decisions. In a case when they were passing an island that had sirens singing, well, sirens have a tendency, their song is so enticing that if you're listening to it, you will jump right into the water and drown yourself because that song just tempts you to leave the boat. And so he made a strategic decision. I will listen to it, and the rest of you will, put wax in your ears so you cannot hear the song as much as I do. When this happens, because it was necessary for part of his journey to understand siren song, you are going to tie me to the mast. You will do so tightly so I cannot escape, and no matter how much I plead, you must not let me go, because if I go, I will lead us all astray and we will never see home. That's a strategic decision. As a matter of fact, when he ended up on an island with the sorceress Circe, he had to make strategic decisions because Circe had turned his crew into pigs and other animals, but mostly pigs. And he had to find a way to strategically work with her to even use deception so that he would have the opportunity to get his crew and himself safely home to their families. And we're looking at King of Cups, and we're looking at when I think King of Wands, I think of Jason and the Argonauts. Now, Jason was the king of Thesis, which was located in what is called Egypt today. He became a king there. He was a Greek warrior who had a ship called the Argo and had adventures on it, which Heracles was on it, and so was Orpheus. They all both have their own myths. And so as the King of Wands, He was visionary. He was bold. He was inspiring. He could will people. He did. He literally willed people onto the boat. That's how his sheer force of his personality got Orpheus and Heracles and a bunch of other very prominent heroes to join him on the Argonaut for adventure. And he was charismatic, he was courageous, he was unstoppable, and there was a lot of forward momentum. There was a lot of great things happened on that Jason and the Argonauts. And it's a great, sorry, if you hear anything, that's my bed creaking and my tummy going, whoa! Sorry about that. Anyway, King of Wands is most certainly Jason of Jason and Argonauts. If you remember your Greek mythology, you'd be about latter years in secondary school that you would have been exposed to this. And sheer charisma, sheer courage. He managed to get people to join his crew on the Argonauts to go on an adventure. Okay, he's also part of another story which has his common law spouse Medea involved, and he had sheer charisma that got this woman to be interested in helping him. She fell madly in love, not through her own volition. It was the gods who had that power to make her fall in love, so that she would help the hero that whatever god was championing. In Greek mythology, gods had a tendency to have favorites, and they chose heroes, and those heroes they would give blessings to, and those they detested, they would give boons, not give boons to, they would give curses and hexes and vexes to, because those are the people they did not fancy. So in Greek mythology, the gods absolutely did have favorites, and Jason was a favorite. And so Aphrodite, I think, linked him, and if depending on the story and the lineage of the story, a different god will be behind Jason. Aphrodite is in this story. Why? Because it was Cupid, Eros' arrow, that made her fall in love with Jason and thereby help him doing all of the magic that she did to help him get the crown back that he wanted to get back. Spoiler alert, he did not get that crown back because turns out some of the ways that Medea decided to help him get what he wanted involved things that made him uncomfortable or were things that were highly unethical. And he didn't say anything because he wanted that crown more than he wanted people to be alive. He wanted that crown more than he wanted people to, like I said, then he wanted not to kill people. If he had to kill people to get to the crown, he was willing to do so, and he was. He said nothing all through that entire story with Medea until the very end when he betrays her to run off with someone else, because the true thing was it was never about her. He didn't have the same level of emotion or feeling toward her as she did toward him, and he wanted a crown, and he didn't want her with all of her baggage that tied him to a past that he didn't want to be part of. So that courage becomes King of Wands reversed, and then it burns out and harms people, which is exactly what happens. So Jason and the Argonauts, Jason of Theseus, King of Theseus, is the King of Wands, fire. And so if we're going to look at the King of Cups, and we do, we're going to look at Chiron. Now, Chiron is a subject you have heard me discuss. I identify very strongly with that energy. It is healing energy. It is maverick energy. And it is definitely outsider energy, because Chiron was not loved by their parent. They were a different type of centaur from the other centaurs. They tended to be a thinker, a healer. They were part god. They consorted with gods. They were raised by two twin gods, Apollo and Artemis. The god of the sun, goddess of the moon, were the only parents that he knew. And so healing, childbirth, learning, prophecy, all of that stuff, Apollo and Artemis taught him, because they were the ones who became the parenting figures. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Zeus who was the father, because Zeus had a tendency to spread his love quite liberally, quite abundantly all over the place, and so he couldn't take care of the kid. He's being the king of the gods and also running after every pretty thing, regardless of their gender, that happened to be around. And so Chiron, he said, hey, take care of my kid. And so Apollo and Artemis took to the job and raised a very
prince-like, centaur who eventually became their leader because they were convinced he was emotionally intelligent. He was a compassionate leader. He could command. He was emotionally intelligent, and he was also the mentor and teacher of many, many, many heroes, including Hercules, otherwise what the Greeks called Heracles, and Hercules is what the Romans called that particular character. He was their teacher. So once Chiron became a master healer and a master teacher, and a very compassionate one, because they understood what it was like to be an outsider, to be a token. He was allowed to hang on around God so long as he behaved himself. He also made the ultimate sacrifice, which is a very cup-like thing to do, which was when he saw Prometheus, who had only tried to help human beings by bringing them out of the darkness by giving them fire, therefore light. And that is coded to mean also intelligence, enlightenment, the ability to know, to understand, and to experience truth. He didn't think Prometheus should suffer, and he was suffering, so he offered to trade places with Prometheus to free him from having his liver eaten out every day and then grown back and eaten out in perpetuity. So he frees Prometheus, who only tried to help humanity, and for that his father, Zeus, cast him in the heavens as either Sagittarius or Centaurus, depending on the story and depending on where it is and depending on the lineage. And so that is King of Cups energy. That's fiery energy. He was a very kind teacher, a very emotionally astute, a healer, a good healer, and a good teacher. Lived in a cave, and that's where you met him. And it was during his teachings and hanging out with one of his students, Hercules, that he was injured by a poisoned arrow. And so understanding pain was what helped him become more empathetic, and he was able to be commanding, be empathetic, but he was able to meet his students, the heroes, where they happened to be. Now, if we're looking at King of Pentacles, someone who's very, very grounded, practical. Well, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to do it. I would consider Zeus to be that King of Pentacles energy. He was the king of the gods, and the whole of the god pantheon was under his purview. If there was a dispute between gods, it was his grounded energy. Even though he couldn't keep himself to himself, that grounded energy was responsible for the world continuing. So he would hear, if there were two gods fighting, he would listen to the discourse between the two and make the deciding vote on who was going to win, who was going to lose, etc. So practical. Even though he threw thunderbolts, he was a very practical guy. You have to be practical to rule gods, all of whom happen to be capricious, all of whom believe they are the center of the cosmos, and to be the one to say, I'm sorry, Ares, but you cannot invade this country or have your heroes blundering hither, thither, and yon simply because you want to. And you do have to, and Hades, you do have to respect Demeter, and you cannot kidnap her child and keep her kid because we have a rule. We agreed, you agreed. And if you're not going to follow the rules, then why bother being a god in the first place? So you're going to abide by the rules, which this is the rule. And that is practical authority, practical energy, and proven success. The universe is still around. As when he was doing this, the universe is still around. Proof is in, proof of concept. We are not gone. We are here. Humans are still here. Everybody's thriving. So the way I rule things must be working. I can be practical, and I do have the ability to build lasting structures. And so that is King of Pentacles energy. So each king channels the suit's essence through fire's active, commanding influence. And that makes their energy an external. It can make it authoritative. It can be manifested through leadership and directing power. Now, here are some examples through TV and films. I have 3 people who are king energy. Absolutely. Ricardo Montalban, who played Khan in the original Star Trek, the original series, he plays Khan on that series, then reprises the role in the second film, The Wrath of Khan, when Star Trek went to the films and became major motion film franchises. The second film is called The Wrath of Khan, and he reprises the role, and he has a very commanding energy, very king-like, very commanding, very authoritative, very active kind of energy. It comes off grounded to me, but there's, a little bit of strategy in there. So he could be King of Pentacles or King of Swords. The next would be Yul Brynner. If anyone's ever seen The King and I, it is a really great musical from the golden age of Hollywood, and he would say, etc., etc., etc. He was the king of Siam. He was a king, and he came off, he had kingly energy, even in real life. People would say of Yul Brynner. By the way, he is also in The Magnificent Seven. He plays the lead role in that, for all of you vintage old movie film buffs out there. And so he had a commanding energy. Everybody who ever met Yul Brynner would have said in the golden age of Hollywood, his energy is regal. It's masterful, much like Ricardo Montalban. They had a regal, masterful energy. Example, when someone was trying to direct Ricardo Montalban, for example, on the set of Wrath of Khan, the director was so intimidated, he didn't want to approach Ricardo because that energy it's big energy. King energy is big energy. It's authoritative. It is like Jupiter's magnosphere. It is several feet out in front of the person. You can feel that energy before you even enter the room. Kind of energy. So, very king-like. Third is Chadwick Boseman as the one and only King of Wakanda. That energy, it's very different. You'll notice the three kings. So, how would you, what kind of energy would you say Chadwick Boseman? If you're a fan of Black Panther, and if you're listening to me, you really should be. Why aren't you? I mean, come on, Marvel's amazing. Not all their stuff, but this is. Which one? Is he a king of wands? Is he the king of cups? Is he king of swords? Is he king of pentacles? Just, shout it out, let me know. Anyway, he also has king energy because he's a king. Even when they put him in What If, he was still a king. Everything about that energy is regal. It's as if he knows he's a king. He walks around as a king, but that energy is still very different from the other two men that I named. And there are also women that have it, like Viola Davis. When she is in How to Get Away with Murder, that is king energy. I don't have time for this. I don't want to deal with this. So I would say King of Wands for her in How to Get Away with Murder. King of Wands or King of Swords, because she's not interested in diplomacy. Stuff needs to happen. F needs to happen. F needs to be set off. I don't have time for this. Get on top of this, people. Get behind me, people. That kind of energy. So that's also king energy. She also played a king in a recent film that, I'm sorry, the name escapes me. But that's also king energy. And I really like Viola Davis. I also say Thursday Murder Club, Helen Mirren has king energy. She leads the Thursday Murder Club. She's always out front. She's always the one doing the thinking, the one doing the strategizing. The two gents, Pierce Brosnan and Sir Ben Kingsley, their characters tend to just follow in her wake. She's definitely a king. Okay? All right, so let's move on to practical reading with kings, questions of authority and mastery. So, kings speak to questions about mature energy. Okay? It is external authority. It is commanding leadership. It is established, lived experience. It is the ability to direct and to shape circumstances through your agency, through how you choose to move your power, which is your energy, through the world. And so here's a reading example. So let's say, how can I take control of my relationship? I have a friendship. It's kind of spinning. How do I take control of that? And you draw the King of Pentacles. It can be interpreted as approach with practical authority. Use proven methods. So, if
this relationship is spiraling out of control, you're going to need to step into it and be very practical. You're going to have an objective. Do you want to save this relationship? What do you want to do first? Set that objective and then move toward that objective. If you want to save the relationship, because that's more interesting for this particular example, then you're going to need to decide if that's the objective, I want to save this relationship, then you need intel. You need more intel. What's going on with you? Figure out what's going on with you. And then you need to go to this friend and say, hey, let's talk, friend. What's going on? I sense that our relationship, our friendship is not on solid ground. Is anything going on with you? Is there anything I can help you with? That sort of thing. That is King of Cups energy. That's taking the initiative. It's like, okay, I want to maintain this relationship. This person matters to me. So this is what I feel. I care about this person, and I really want to maintain this connection. Let's see what's going on with them and see what can be done. And the friend may come back and say, yeah, I've just been really underwater here. I am drowning, and I don't know how to fix it. Now we've started on something. Okay, it's not an issue with our particular King of Cups. It is an issue the friend might be having. How can I support you? Is there anything I can do to support you? Would be something the King of Cups might ask. And so when I said King of Pentacles, I said that was that. When I do the reading for the King of Cups, this is how that might play out. Now, if it's the King of Pentacles energy playing it out, we got an objective, and now we have, okay, I need a strategy. That strategy needs to be informed by information. Let me go to my friend and get some information. Once I've gotten that information, it's okay, let's work together. Maybe we can come and meet for coffee. Maybe we can talk on the phone. What feels the best for the friend that both can do, that both can get into. And so that is the King of Pentacles being practical, because this friend might not have, I don't have a lot of energy. The friend says, okay, let's text. Can you text? I can text, but I don't have any energy for anything else. Okay, let's check in via text, and let me see how you're doing, and keep in line with you, and keep, connected to you in a way that is not going to be overwhelming. Okay, so we're going to text for the next few days, and I'll check in maybe the next week or two and see how you're doing. And do you need anybody to help you? If somebody could just make dinner tonight, that would be great. Excellent. I will take care of that for you. You see, King of Pentacles stepping in. Also, if we say the King of Cups, that'll be my second example. We're going to be emotional authority. So we're still going with authority, but that is going to be more compassionate. And it's like, okay, how can I be there for you? Do you mind picking up dinner for me? And can you just come and hang out with me right now? I'm just really underwater and I don't want to be alone. Got it? How about Chinese? There's this restaurant I want to try. I want to try something that I like. How about this one we used to go to over here on this street over here? You see, King of Cups stepping in, supporting the friend, coming over to offer emotional support. The King of Cups leading the thing. Hey, I want to talk. Hey, I'm not in the mood for dinner or anything. Can I talk? I just need to talk. Okay, the King of Cups talking, bringing that intellectual strategy. Okay, I need. You know what I need right now, King of Cups? I need to strategize. Groovy. King of Cups can stand back, tell me what's going on, and let me help you. Okay? That's the King of Cups. King of Wands is like, hey. It's like, you know what? I need to get out of the house. You want to go with me on a hike? We can see pretty things. You can get out of your head. You move your body, because movement will help you process emotion better. And so the King of Wands is like, hey, let's go for a run. Hey, let's go for a hike. Let's look at the horizon from this really great spot up top there that I love to go to when I'm lost. And it's very wonderful and grounding, and I think it will help. Would you like to come? Oh, yes, absolutely. Let's move. And now you walk up to the top. You see the pretty view the King of Cups has shown you. And now you have an idea of, if it is you, of what you want to do. So that is 4 different ways the King can address a situation. How do I take control of this friendship? Well, I can offer support emotionally. I can get them to move their body and get them out in the world. I can help them strategize, or I can be grounded and help them take care of practical details that they can't take care of given their emotional state. So, Timing with the kings operates like this. Kings indicate periods of established energy, its culmination, its maintenance, its achievement. So anything that requires decisive leadership or command from a place of mastery, which really tells me nothing. So basically, this is full moon energy. When we hear culmination, you're hearing full moon energy. We're hearing someone at the peak of their powers, at the peak of their career, the peak of something. We're talking about someone at the peak of their existence, the peak of all of their powers, their ability to draw on, its lived experience. It's handed up because this person has practiced, they have worked, they've put in the effort, and now when they need imagination, when they need emotional intelligence, when they need strategy, when they need to take action, when they need to be practical and put a system in place, that information comes like that, because of all the lived experiences and all the discernment and all the practicality that the kings bring to the table. So when we're looking at kings, we're looking like full moon energy. So it's ideal time. You can also do it with full moon. I would also say that if we're dealing with sun energy, you can also pull it for any of the suns or moons, but particularly the suns, when it's in an element that corresponds to the element of the king. So wands would be Aries, Leo, Sag, and earth would be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, and swords would be Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, and cups would be Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. So during any of the suns, because king energy is very sun energy. It wants to shine. It wants to be big. It wants to be brilliant. It wants to be bold kind of energy. And so you can use king cards for that time period. All right. And so here's a reflection before we shove off. Which king energy do you, dear listener, do you, star people, what are you embodying? What do you need to develop? What are you being called to step into authoritatively? Authoritatively means confidently. Where do you need confidence? Where would you benefit from practicing and putting effort into feeling more confident? Choose your king accordingly. And how can you lead from an established power, from a place of that confidence, what you know to be true, rather than having to prove yourself? Because proving yourself is what knights do. It's what pages do, particularly knights, okay? And so, one key takeaway here is this. Kings teach us that authority is earned through lived experience. It is earned through skill. It is earned through effort. It is maintained through decisive action. True leadership comes from embodying your authentic self and your agency, and directing it with wisdom, with intelligence. And so I invite you to draw a king card and identify one area where you can step into this authoritative power, where you can take, and so once you draw that card, take one small decisive action that demonstrates your command and leadership in that particular domain. Okay? And next one is going to be bringing it all together with astro timing in tarot readings. And so we want to understand astrological correspondences for timing and deeper interpretation, and that will be the next episode. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you. Once again, there is the Outlaw Astrologies, the Daily Stargazer newsletter is free and paid versions. There is also a podcast attached. The link will be in the show notes. You can find us on Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Those links also in the show notes. And if you could be so kind as to give us a review, 5 stars please, and share and like wherever you listen to podcasts, that'd be absolutely wonderful, because it will make it easier for other people to get the information and to find us as well. So thank you very much. Peace and astro magic, star people.